So I checked out The Rain, new show that just came to Netflix. I watched all 8 episodes of the first season. They go by quick, very easy to binge. Each episode is a little less than 40 minutes. Now, it's being billed as sci-fi. I think it's a little light on the sci-fi elements. There's a pretty cool circular drone. There's some bunkers, but not great science fiction, but really, really great post-apocalyptic, scavenging, zombie survival genre. If you go in expecting that, it's fantastic. And I'll talk about why. The first is the characters. They don't seem like market-tested, bland characters. The characters are very real, very relatable, but very likable as well. The atmosphere, the setting is fantastic. It reminded me a lot the show Dark that came to Netflix. People loved it. Now, not as far as conceptually, but just visually, the atmosphere. It's shot in similar locations somewhat in the world, and it really does show. And not just the visuals, just this lush woods and fog that really helps this post-apocalyptic vibe, but the music. And there's this wonderful music moments, female vocals come in, and this one time I had to look up the song. Turns out it's the exact same artist that did one of my favorite songs on Dark. So definitely if you liked the atmosphere of Dark as well as conceptually, you might like this a lot. Now, the premise, I'll describe the premise, and again, you got to remember, it's less Hunger Games and Divergent, it's less dystopian than maybe a bit of Maze Runner thrown in there, but Walking Dead is the best. You have a group, you have a band of people just trying to survive in this post-apocalyptic environment. So it starts out, first episode, Simone arrives at school, she goes to her study group, a little bit of flirtation with one of the guys in her study group, and all of a sudden her dad comes and whisks her away, says the rain's coming, and is driving, and she's like, I don't understand, I don't see any rain, but he drives the family to this bunker, and we get this really cool shot of just a single raindrop, and the music's playing, and we know because it's called The Rain, we know the rain is menacing, so it's kind of a fun way to start. Eventually, Simone and her brother, Rasmus, they end up in the bunker, and we get the information that Rasmus is the key to everything. That's teased, and that doesn't really come into play until very, very much later in the season. And eventually the mother dies in front of their eyes. The father says, I'm going to go get help. He doesn't show up for 6 years, and they spend 6 years in the bunker together, enough that they change the actor for Rasmus. And now they're 6 years past. They're remarkably well adjusted. You think spending 6 years, just you'd go a little crazy, start doing weird stuff, but they seem pretty well adjusted. And then they come up 6 years since the rain has devastated at least Denmark. We don't find out about the rest of the world. And they link up with this band. And what really did carry the show is the strength of these characters and this band that was trying to survive together. Midway through the season, we started getting episodes, and each episode was devoted to fleshing out one of these characters' backstories. Now, immediately I thought this was going to be really hokey and get really corny and repetitive, but each backstory was so strong and so realistic and so gritty. I thought it was great. It was a great tactic, and by the end of it, you really felt you knew these characters. You cared what was going to happen to them, and it was fun trying to predict what you see these characters trying to survive, and they're thrown into these situations, and knowing their backstories, knowing what kind of makes them tick, you start to try to predict which one's going to do what. So it was great. The chemistry between the characters that start flirting was fantastic and made all the more special by just the dangerous environment they're in, but some really surprisingly sweet, flirtatious moments. And the leader, or one of the characters, he asked one of the characters on a date, after this is over, let's go on a date. And she's like, oh, where are you going to take me? And you think he's kind of a bit of a jerk at this point. But then he's like, oh, when I was a kid, there's this mountain. And when I was a kid, I thought this was the tallest mountain in the world. And I thought you could see the whole world from this mountain. And I'd love to take you there. And you realize, oh, he's kind of a sweet guy. And before I get to spoilers, I want to mention that when they were fleshing out these different backstories kind of mid-season, this easily could have slammed the momentum down and really hurt, character development. It's important, but sometimes it can kill the momentum. What I loved is they had this little mini mystery. And they had the larger mystery throughout the season, but they had a little mini mystery that cropped up that was very, very intriguing midway through the season, right when they were doing this character building, and it made it so I never felt like there was any mid-season slump. I always felt like it was just breezing by, so I thought the pacing was excellent. I did want to mention that. Last things I wanted to mention before I get to spoilers, the attacks that we saw. It was great because it wasn't zombies that were attacking. They were just ordinary people that had been so driven to desperation because there was an apocalypse and food was so scarce, so just pure starvation. And you saw how the distinction between a zombie attack and someone who's completely driven mad by starvation, they're almost the same, just in their savagery. So I thought really awesome, scary, frightening sequences of violence we got because we saw the desperation. I love the opening credits scene. Honestly, if it hadn't been for the names the names of the people involved in the show, which is the entire point of the opening credits. I thought it could have been one of my favorite credit scenes ever. It was just so immersive, such an interesting visual. So I love the opening credit scene and the dubs. I didn't think they were. I watched with both dubs and subs. I didn't think the dubbing was that bad. And apparently a lot of the actors, the same actors who did the show, they also were involved in the dub. So I didn't think the dubs wasn't as good. Obviously as not doing dubs and doing subtitles, that's always best. But I didn't think the dubs was that bad. And now I wanted to talk about spoilers and why I didn't quite like the ending. I didn't like the direction they took it, and the last episode, maybe episode and a half, I really felt I didn't like the direction they took, and I wish they went a different way. Now, why do I say that? I loved, first of all, the twist where they stumble across this cult that seems to be living pretty well, and then it turns out the cult's involved in cannibalism. Now, it's very, very cliche, but I thought they did it so well. It was so well done, so well paced, so well executed that I thought it was fantastic. I didn't mind it at all that it was cliche when it's executed that well. But then it's still good. I love that we flesh out the different backstories, and like I say, Patrick's especially, and just that gut-wrenching moment. First, the moment where they're all dancing in the rain, beautiful female vocals come in, and then you just see Patrick just drinking by himself on the steps. So you just start to get this tortured, complex character, and then Patrick, when he gets sent away, it's just heartbreaking, and then it flashes back to when him and Martin first meet, and, you know, they share a smoke and start to bond. And you see how Patrick, he's never really done anything in his life. So these were real high moments for me. I loved Beatrice. Her characterization at first, she seemed like a very good religious person, very wholesome, very caring. But we start to see that she's maybe the real survivor in the group, and she's maybe the one willing to do whatever it takes to survive. And maybe it's not Martin that has the power and has everyone wrapped around his finger, but maybe it's her that's the real power behind the scenes. So they had some really interesting characterization going. And then killing Beatrice, it was heart-wrenching. It was amazing just to see Rasmus, just the effect it had on him, and him just becoming the Terminator trying to save her. But I wish they did something more interesting and a little more shocking with her. And then the direction they took, where it was all about Rasmus and him being the chosen one and having the cure, and then even the ending shot of all the evil people in the dark room around the table saying, you know, we found what we'll use to control the world, but we just need the kids, the key. I felt like that just became a little too Maze Runner for me, a little too, oh, it's this group of kids fighting the evil adults. I thought before they had a really interesting group dynamic, and I would have loved to see that explored more and maybe see some factions, you know, going head to head in the group. I didn't think they needed to take it to this level, which I get they teased it early on, but in some sense I wish they would have just stayed away from this whole cure aspect, because I thought they had such a really cool setting, such great characters. They could have just stuck with that rather than give it this kind of like world-ending stake. And I feel like it was just stronger in these little character moments when we get Martin's backstory, that he was a soldier, and he was supposed to shoot everyone that came to prevent people from getting infected, and he couldn't do it. He couldn't shoot this pregnant woman, or I forget, this woman with her kid. I think it was a pregnant woman, and he just couldn't bring himself to do it. And because of that, a lot of people died, and it shows him just being kind of tortured by this inability to be ruthless, and that's why he kind of compensates with this front. So moments like that, the moment where Patrick, his dad gives him keys to a car, and it should be this great father-son bonding moment, and he kind of jokes, oh, I'll use it to go around Europe. And his dad's like, yeah, and you don't have to come back. And just these brutal moments, and I love these little character moments we got, and I thought they were great. And then I didn't think they were quite as good at setting up this shadowy corporation that's trying to achieve world domination. I didn't think it was quite as strong there. I thought they should have stuck with just these characters and the setting.